Look, it's great to have Senator the Honourable Jan McLucas here. Apart from anything, while it's slightly warmer here than it is in Canberra, it definitely wouldn't be my choice of locations if I lived in far north Queensland as she does. So thanks for coming, Jan. Jan's currently the Federal Shadow Minister for Housing and Homelessness, but she's held a significant number of portfolio responsibilities both in government and in opposition, which have all been focused on addressing disadvantage. Jan has a proud history of promoting equality in Australia, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to her thoughts today. Senator Jan McLucas, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy. Oh, my voice is going to go from the start. Thanks for the invitation to be with you today. Can I first acknowledge the Kaurna people, the traditional owners of the country we're meeting on today, pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. And in doing so, I want to pay my respects to any other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are with us here today. I want to acknowledge Zoe. It's great to be back in your state talking housing and homelessness policy with you. I also acknowledge Rachel Sanderson, the Shadow Minister for Housing. We're in a club, Rachel, we want to get out of. I'm on a different side though. The list of people who are here, the speakers list today is significant, and I acknowledge you all. This is an important conference, only your second, but is an important part of the conversation that we have to have in Australia about housing and homelessness policy. Thank you, Kathy. Sorry about this. It's always when at the beginning of the day. Homelessness Prevention Week is an opportune time to shine a light on the shameful statistic in Australia of the 105,000 Australians who are in precarious accommodation. I know you will be very familiar with all the statistics. They are alarming, and we do have to remind ourselves of who these people are. The people behind these statistics do surprise some in our community. We know that the myth that all these homeless people are middle-aged men with mental illness problems, alcohol and drug addiction. That's the group of people that most Australians think are this group of the homeless cohort. But you know, along with those who work in the sector, that most of the people who are homeless in our society are women. Half of those women who are in precarious accommodation are women escaping domestic violence. We know that 16% of people are that group of people who fit the stereotype, sleeping rough, with a range of issues that support them, that mean that they're in that circumstance. We know a lot of people are young, very young. But we also know there is a new and emerging group of people that I am particularly concerned about, and that is a group of older women, older single women, who are becoming homeless or at risk of being homeless. It's a group of people that I am really focusing on in the policy work we're doing. Our country's homeless people are someone's mum or dad, they're someone's child. They all have a history and a story, and they all deserve an opportunity to be housed safely. The enduring presence of homelessness in a wealthy country such as ours shows that we really have a lot more to do. The theme of this year's Homeless Prevention Week is Step Up to End Homelessness, and it couldn't be more fitting in our current political climate. There has been much dialogue about the roles and responsibilities between the various levels of government, in particular the federal versus state roles. I know many of you are closely watching the Federation White Paper process that is currently underway by the current government. The Housing and Homelessness Issues paper was released in December of last year, and we recently saw their initial proposals released in a draft Green Paper. The Tax Reform White Paper process, also currently underway, will have implications for the housing sector. We also expect to see an Options or Green Paper for that process later this year. And while, of course, there are good reasons for undertaking such processes, I do have some concern that action on housing and homelessness will become second fiddle to the battle that will erupt between jurisdictions over roles and responsibilities before we do see any real movement on the housing and homelessness policy front. Not long after the current government was elected, I was worried to read, as I'm sure many of you were, the language surrounding housing and homelessness in the Commission of Audit that was undertaken. Essentially, in that Commission of Audit, we saw a proposal to remove any Commonwealth role in housing affordability and homelessness prevention, apart from the Commonwealth rent assistance payments. We know this would be a simplistic and savage move that would only exacerbate the challenges facing the sector and the vulnerable people that you support. While there was commentary at the time from the government about this just being a recommendation and that it was not intended to be their policy, their actions in the housing and homelessness space have provided very little comfort. In the first year alone, the government abolished the Prime Minister's Council on Homelessness, abolished the highly regarded National Supply Council, the COAD Select Council on Housing and Homeless was removed. There was $44 million cut from the National Partnership Agreement on Homelessness. The National Rental Affordability Scheme, which boosted the supply of affordable housing, was abolished. The axing of the Housing Help for Seniors program, which was to deliver support for pensioners over pension age to downsize or right-size their home, was ceased. And the scrapping of the first home savers accounts, which helped Australians to save for their first home and enter the housing market. It's a pretty savage list when you read it all out in a line. Since then, we've seen respected and valued organisations in our country, Homelessness Australia, National Shelter and the Community Housing Federation of Australia, have their funding cut and their contracts ripped up. To be frank, it's been anything other than what you'd call leadership. So while I respect the white paper processes, I do not want to see responsibilities shirked or a blame-shifting exercise, but yet this government's track record sets a worrying precedent. Homelessness is everyone's responsibility. We all need to play a part and step up, as this year's theme suggests. There is a desire and a need for all levels of governments and political persuasions to be firm in our commitment to end homelessness in Australia. We do need strong leadership in housing and homelessness policy, and I think we'll all agree that it is critical that the Commonwealth Government plays an important role here. In the last decade, there has been some progress in housing and homelessness policy and investment, but the challenge right now is for this to continue. When we were in government, we took housing and homelessness policy and programs seriously. We took a leadership role and invested more than ever before. That included making the largest ever investment in social housing in our history, thanks to the global financial crisis, but there's a silver lining on every cloud, which delivered 21,000 new homes. We made a direct financial contribution to 1 in every 20 new homes that were built in the period that we were in government. We undertook significant reforms, including establishing the NRAS, the National Rental Affordability Scheme, and we renegotiated the National Partnership Agreement on Homelessness, which saw the Australian, state and territory governments provide $1.1 billion in funding. But of course, there's a lot more to be done if we are serious about continuing this fight and tackling homelessness. This is not the time to take the foot off the pedal. Rather, we need to push it to the floor. In contrast to the Coalition, Labor is putting housing affordability and homelessness prevention front and centre of our policy development process. We want to see policies that deliver real benefits to people around the country, which is why earlier this year, Bill Shorten asked Chris Bowen, our Shadow Treasurer, and myself to develop the housing affordability strategy that we will take to the next election. Many of you, I know, shared your views in our Senate inquiry into affordable housing, which I thank you for. This work will also inform our policy work, and Chris and I will continue to engage broadly with stakeholders right across the housing and homelessness spectrum as we do this. We know there's a lot more to do than just providing a roof over one's head. It is for this reason that both of us are involved in the process, to have the economic and tax perspectives through to the social and welfare elements considered in the development of a comprehensive housing and homelessness policy. Homelessness is very often the result of a range of complex and interrelated issues in a person's life. It could involve, and often does, unemployment, mental illness, domestic violence, and a shortage of affordable housing in a tight rental market. It's more than a place to stay, and it's why I believe housing first is a good way to start. Friends, how can a single mother who was in a precarious accommodation even begin to think properly about her career and getting her children into schools every day? How can a teenager whose home life is untenable even begin to think about enrolling in TAFE, buying textbooks, finding and maintaining a part-time job, getting their Centrelink business in order? Every homeless person has a different set of circumstances, which presents a challenge for policymakers and governments. How do we respond efficiently, effectively, and yet individually? To have success, an individual's other issues that may have led to their homelessness must also be addressed. We need to have services that wrap around the person we're trying to assist. So let's look at the National Partnership Agreement on Homelessness. I acknowledge improvements that can be made to the NPAR and its governance, but there are too many positive outcomes for us to abandon its principles. The $115 million that the Commonwealth Government contributes into the service side of NPAR has been continued, and we are happy for that. But, my friends, $44 million of capital money and research money has been cut from this program. That's the money that the Commonwealth used as a carrot to encourage our states and territories to think differently about how we provide homelessness services, because we do need, in some respects, the capital money to build innovative models. I look to the FOIA models that have been developed under the NPAR. There are many success stories around the country. We are at the early stage of innovation in homelessness service delivery, and we need to continue that work. There are other innovative solutions that I have seen in my role in the last while that will never fit into some of our housing policy the way it's designed. And I look to a program operates in Victoria called Kids Undercover, which I'll point you to. It's a really innovative program. It's got great success stories. It'll never be funded under a Commonwealth, State and Territory National Partnership Agreement, the way we've designed it. So we do have to think creatively about what we're doing. There's a lot of good work occurring on the ground, as you know, that we have to the NPAR to thank for. There's a lot more we can do and we can improve upon, and I'm quite receptive to seeing some refinements to the agreement that will allow this innovation to occur. Before I finish then, I want to acknowledge the work that's being done day in and day out by those in the homelessness sector. I know you don't do it for thanks, but it is important that you are recognised and valued. It has no doubt been a tough couple of years as you continue to operate in such uncertain funding circumstances. There are thousands of vulnerable Australians whose lives you have changed. The work that you do is incredibly important, and it's what drives me and that of my colleagues to do what I do every day, to develop meaningful and effective policies that will help make a difference and to make our country a better place. We are lucky in Australia, and there is no reason why we can't do better in ensuring that our most vulnerable are helped. I wish you all a very productive conference. I hope you have a good supply of business cards with you today, as it's undoubtedly a great time to forge new relationships and perhaps reignite some old ones. And I look forward to catching up with you during the day. Thank you very much.